gonna try this in one take, and hopefully my camera doesn't run out of batteries. So, Jenny. Okay. All right. So, this is gonna be my overdue after-action review of the Lodestone Night Fighter Challenge. I'm gonna talk about the events that we did, and I'm gonna talk about some of the stuff that I liked about my kit and some stuff that I think I need to reconsider. It was held at Pennsylvania Gunfighter Academy, which is what Lodestone is now calling this facility. It's essentially a abandoned correctional facility. It's a prison that they have now taken over and are operating out of for a lot of their training events. So it was held there. It was a really cool facility, and I think it has a lot of potential for LTAC to use in the future. So it was held in a prison. It was cool. The event consisted of a ruck march, a CQB section, shooting. You had to do another loop around, so like a ruck march part 2. You had to disassemble your weapon under nods. There was a KIMS game, and if you don't know what a KIMS game is, essentially you have to look at a bunch of stuff, memorize what you see, and then come back and write it down. And the more stuff you get correct and more stuff you remember, the better you do. Or if it's like the more you miss, the worse. I don't know how they graded it, but you have to remember a bunch of stuff. And then there was the escape and evasion, which was pretty fun. I'm gonna bring the camera in and I'll show you on the map kind of what the ruck march looked like. All right, so this is the prison complex. Need my pointer. All right, so let me just get oriented here. So the check-in was at this building right here, which is like the visitor center. This is where the ruck march started. And when we stepped off, we came out of this building. This is the outer perimeter. There's 2 sections of fence. There's an inner fence and an outer fence, and then a perimeter road. So we came in on the inside of the perimeter, and we walked down to this section right here. What this is a gate that's a roadway that gets you in between the 2 inner and outer fences. So you had to do a ruck march around, and you came out here, and then you had to hit the perimeter road and do the perimeter road all the way back. And then you had to cut through the woods and come over to this building, and this was the first CQB stage. Essentially what it was is you were given an airsoft rifle with an IR laser on it, and you had to move down a hallway under nods and find targets and engage them. The targets were only like the paper targets, but you had to engage them. If you missed one, then you got docked a point. And they were like, it was just a hallway with rooms on either side, so you had to like peek into the rooms and find them. You weren't necessarily like clearing, big air quotes, clearing the building. You were just essentially just moving and looking for targets, and that was pretty fun. After that, and you went down to this section here. This is where the range was, and you had to shoot 10 rounds under IR. And then you had to shoot, I think it was 20 rounds under IR, 10 rounds under passive aiming, and then 10 rounds of white light. So the weather was awful. When we stepped off, it was almost complete whiteout conditions with snow and fog and freezing rain falling. So it was pretty rough conditions. So when it came to do the white light shooting, you illuminate your light and like shine on your target, and you couldn't see anything because it was just like when you put your high beams on going through fog. That's essentially what it was. So a lot of, not to say a lot, but some folks, including me, any shots that they missed were on the white light stage. All right, so after that, then you had to climb. This is actually a pretty big hill. You had to climb all the way back up this hill, come down this road to where you were told to get back into the perimeter and then do another perimeter, in between the inner and outer fence. You had to do another perimeter ruck march, which then dumped you off back down here. Dumped you off like right about here. Then you had to go into, I think it was this building. Maybe it was this building. And you had to do a disassemble of your rifle, just a field strip, just take the bolt carrier and the charging handle out, put it back in, put the pin back in, and do a functions check. You had to do that either in complete darkness or under nods. I kind of did it both. By this time I was pretty cold and wet, so my dexterity was pretty bad, and I kind of struggled getting my my bolt and my charging handle back in. So I probably didn't do very good on that stage. And then you had to come over to another building, which I kind of forget. And that's where we had the Kim's game. Essentially, you walked into a prison block or a prison cell that was, I guess it was a prison block. Completely dark. You had to use your nods and scan around and find the things that were laid out in the room. The things that I found was like they had like a shotgun in there. There was a teddy bear. There was a boot. There was a scope. There was a bipod. There was some soda cans, some Windex, and a bunch of other stuff. And then you had to come back out and write everything down, and then they would grade you on how well you did. And then you were sent off to do the E&E phase. And right here, this building right here that's circled is the chapel. And essentially you had to make it from, I believe, let me see if I can orient. You had to make it from the D building right here. I'm pretty sure it's the D building. And you had to make it over to the chapel without getting seen by roving patrols. So there were folks on foot. There were people in vehicles with floodlights that were kind of driving up and down this roadway, and then some of the foot patrols were actually cutting into this building. So I left this building, came across, and I guess it must have been this building then, because I ran straight, or this building. I bet you the Kim's game was in building B. I bet you it was. So I ran straight across and I got into this building and came within about 3 feet of getting spotted by the foot patrol that was coming through here. And then I got super disoriented in this building. This is actually a pretty big building, lots of different floors. I came across, I heard some noise and I froze, and then the noise froze. And there was kind of like this silent Mexican standoff. And then I shined my IR laser on the floor of the hallway, and I saw an IR laser come back. And I'm like, okay, this is one of the other contestants, because the foot patrols weren't using night vision. So that was kind of like a cool, impromptu, friendly identifier. So I linked up with this dude, and we kind of tried to time when we could get out of this building and hit this tree line to make our way up to the chapel. So we came out of this door, we skirted along in the shadows. There's like some standing bushes here and some standing trees. Cut up here. Foot patrols are coming up and down, the vehicles are coming up and down, and then finally made it to the chapel. The E&E for me actually took pretty long, just because the one dude kind of sprinted ahead and then I got stuck. So, but whatever, I made it to the chapel, and then that was the end. And after that, you went back to the check-in point, and that was it. So that was pretty cool. Well, my hope of doing this video in one take didn't quite come true. When I was filming this portion of the video, I realized that nothing that I was showing you was in frame. It was all above frame. So I'm redoing it so that way I can actually show you what I'm talking about. All right, so this portion of the video, I want to go over my kit, what worked well for me, and what I think I need to improve on. So I'm going to start off with my rifle. My rifle is a nothing fancy 10.5 SBR. I have a Duty RDS red dot on here from Aimpoint, and then I have a very inexpensive, it's from SMS Laser. It's their white light red visible laser and their IR laser device. It's all, it's a 3-in-1 with the momentary pressure pad and then the stay on. So as far as the rifle goes, it functioned perfectly fine. Again, this is not an expensive upper and lower. This is all pretty low end stuff. So the rifle functioned just fine. I didn't have any issues with the cold or ice or whatever. I didn't use any special CLP on here for cold weather. It was just the regular generic stuff. But what did work very well, and what I think everybody should have, are protective caps for their optic. So it was sleeting, snowing, raining, freezing rain for most of the event while we were outside. And when it came to the shooting stage, a lot of guys had issues because there was snow and ice caked up on the inside of their reticle here. Those folks struggled. Fortunately, I didn't, because during the ruck march and pretty much any time I wasn't looking through the optic, I kept these closed, and that prevented snow and ice from building up on the inside of the reticle and obscuring my vision. So highly, highly recommend that you have protective covers for your optic. Something that on my rifle that I don't particularly like, and I want to look at options for it, is on the IR device, this selector switch right here, it was very hard to manipulate with a gloved hand. If I wanted just the IR laser, you have to manually turn this dial around so that way you can activate just the IR laser. So switching between, on the shooting stage, switching between the IR to your white light, I was really fumbling around trying to get it on there. So I want to see if there is, and I'm sure there is, and maybe you guys can help me out with it, if I can still keep this same unit but then have a separate pressure pad switch system thing to where I can activate the white light and then the IR laser separately and independently. So if you know anything like that, please let me know. So yeah, that's it with the rifle. It did fine. So put that over here. All right. So going kind of in that same topic with having a cover for your optics is on my nods. I have a Butler Creek scope cap that protects the front end of my nods. Not only does it act as that light protection, but it also acts as protecting the lens as well from debris getting inside of there. I didn't have my nods on very much for the event because there was such great illumination from the snow on the ground that you really didn't need nods when you're walking around. The only time I flipped them down really was when we were on the trailheads. You could flip your nods down and the trail markers were marked with chem lights. So you'd flip them down momentarily, say, okay, there's the lights, that's where we got to go. Turn them off, flip them back up over your head, and put the cap back on. So no issues with the snow and ice with my nods. The next thing, talking about snow and ice, when we arrived before the event, we arrived pretty early before the event. We were keeping a close eye on the weather, and we saw that the weather was going to be switching over to some pretty icy conditions. So a bunch of us went out to a nearby sporting goods store and bought these rubber overshoe crampon things. I'm going to call them crampons. I know they're not real, like mountaineering crampons, but that's just the easiest word for me to say. So we went and bought these crampons that just slip right over your boot and gives you some good traction on ice and snow. I think that this was like a cheat code for the ruck march in dealing with the snowy and icy conditions. The ice had developed on the snow so much that in most parts you could walk on the surface, but every now and then you would punch through, I think they call it post holing down, and then you would hit the softer snow and then you would slide. So with these on, that really didn't happen. We only took them off when we were going inside of buildings because obviously this is going to be super slippery on smooth surfaces. So these are easy to pull off your shoes, stick in a pouch, and then go about whatever you're doing inside of the building. And then before you leave, slip these back on over your boots, and you're ready to roll. So that was an extremely useful piece of gear that we all got, or most of us got last minute. The next thing I'm going to say that was really good for me was having on my Wooby hoodie underneath my BDU top. So this was my mid layer. Oh geez, hit the camera or the microphone. So this was my mid layer. I had my BDU top on my outer layer, then this underneath that, and then a long sleeve wool shirt underneath this. And where the Whoopee hoodie played perfectly for me was acting as a wind barrier, a little quasi wind shirt. Because this is 100% nylon, it really defeated a lot of that wind from getting into my core and getting me cold. So so this was great. My BDU shirt, sure, it was a little wet, but for the most part, it was frozen on the surface, and it really didn't permeate down into my other layers. So Whoopee hoodie was awesome. Highly recommend it. I really wasn't all that cold, except toward the end when we were doing the E&E phase. Everything kind of slowed down, and you weren't moving as much, so I got a little chilly. All right, so again, BDU top was fine. Now, for the E&E phase was the only time that I really worried about snow camo. As you can see on my LBE, I don't have the white tape snow camouflage on. The reason why I took all that off is because when we first showed up there was only snow on the ground. There was no snow above your ankle level. So I took it all off, and I was thinking, it's going to be freezing rain. It's not going to accumulate and be snowy conditions. Well, boy, was I wrong. It ended up snowing and sleeting and freezing rain, and we had almost 4 inches of accumulation, 3 inches of accumulation maybe. So everything was completely covered in snow. I didn't bring any extra athletic tape to re-camo my stuff. I really wasn't all that concerned about it. So I just left it. But for the E&E phase, I did put on my overwhites, and I did put on my pack cover that I made. I didn't really go out and test this. I didn't go out into the wood line and have a buddy 200 yards away say, can you see me, can you not? But I didn't get caught, so draw your own conclusions. But if you are in the market for some overwhites, then go to Bass Pro Shop and buy these overwhites for less than $50 for a top and bottom. So it was really good. It was easy to put on over top of all my other stuff, and it didn't make a lot of noise. All right, the LBE functioned like a dream. It worked great. And it integrated well with the rucksack, primarily because I modified it a little bit and I added these. Sorry, make some room here. I added these buckles right here, and what these are pretty much like drop extenders. So you can undo it, and then now you have a lot more of extra space. So now with the extenders open, the LBE back sits about right over top of your butt. So that way you can use your hip pad on your rucksack to kind of take up some of that weight. So I threw those in there, and whenever you're not wearing your rucksack, then you just clip these back up, and now your LBE is sitting back on your belt line. So I have 2 in the back, and then I have 2 in the front as well. So the whole system drops down to your butt level when you're wearing your ruck, and then when you're not wearing a ruck, you bring it back up and it sits at hip level. So that worked great. I had no problems with this rig whatsoever. I'm loving it. All right, so now some stuff that I need to work on, and it's really only one part of my kit that I know I've been skimping on. Is my helmet. So in case you guys didn't know, this is a CVC that I modified to be a high cut helmet. It's heavy, right? That was the big thing. Toward the end of the ruck march, my neck was really uncomfortable, and for the last little bit of the ruck march, maybe like the last 300 to 200 meters, I actually took it off because I knew I was gonna have to wear it longer, so I wanted to give my neck a break. And that posture that you're in when you're in a ruck march, your torso's leaning forward, and that means your head has to be pointed up a little bit. And that extra, I don't know, 3 pounds on my head plus my nods having a super high center of gravity or whatever, put a lot of strain on the back of my neck. I know there are better helmets out there. I'm just not at the moment going to spend that much money on it. So I think what I might do is when I know I need to wear nods and I'm not worried about needing ballistic protection, you know, for events like this, I'm just going to get a bump helmet, like a cheap Amazon Chinese bump helmet. That way it's something that's good enough to hold my nods and ear protection, but I don't need the ballistic protection. So a helmet upgrade I think needs to come, and I think with this helmet, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'm just kind of rocking with it. Maybe I just need to have a stronger neck. So that's really it. Yeah, so Night Fighter was pretty cool. I'm going to do it next year, and yeah, do all the YouTube stuff. If you like this video and the stuff that I'm doing on my channel, hit the subscribe button, share it with all your friends, and I got some more content coming out here pretty soon. Sorry this took so long. Life kind of got in the way for a little bit, and I had to redo part of the video. So do the YouTube stuff, and thanks for coming back and being a part of my channel. Thanks. See ya.